Welcome to the Tripod. We break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. I'm Jacob Wynn. He's the Padonna. Sorry if we burst your eardrums. That did come through loud on mine. That was, of course, the Tripod TikTok account, which has been somewhat active, but it just used to replay clips from our preview. But now I'm actually actively doing genuine, unique TikToks for every best bet. So if you're on that platform, give us a follow, Tripod_betting. Good round 18 for us. We did go 4-0 in our best bets. I'm still a bit disappointed because when you sweep the round of best bets, you also want to win the mixed matchup, which we didn't. You also want to win a multi, which we still didn't manage to win. We can talk about where a couple of them fell short. But Padonis, I think after we just watched that Bulldogs Rabbitohs game, the question I've got to ask you to start off is, what do you reckon Brad Fittler was thinking watching Latrell go superhuman and drag the Rabbitohs to an 8-point victory?
That's going to be giving him nightmares for sure. And thank God that Mitchell took it out of his own hands in pulling himself out of the Origin team. But I definitely would have felt like it would have made a difference, as would have Jack Wyden, who we'll talk about as well, who had a great game down in Melbourne earlier.
Made a difference. Geez, I tell you what, that's just, there's Rabbitohs would have had no hope in that game, but I reckon the Blues could have used him anyway. Sorry to bring that up yet again, because although that was kind of the first game of the round, we already did a mini Origin recap. So let's begin by talking about, well, just in general, I want to talk about our system. I think it worked pretty well this week. So we came into the round. I really liked, my favourite sides were Sharks and Titans. Your favourites were Roosters and Titans. So I looked at Sharks and said, I like Sharks. You lean Sharks. We came up with the best bet on Sharks. Then you liked the Roosters. I leaned to Roosters. We come up with the best bet on Roosters. We both liked Titans. We ended up seeing that number teetering right around the Titans +8, so we could get over 4 points in each half. We took them in both halves. We got two best bets. And then I would have also played the Tigers today. You liked the Panthers. We disagreed. We didn't play it. And obviously one of us was going to win, and then we would have wished we would have been on the other side. And in the end, the Tigers did get up. But overall, to go 4-0 best bets, we actually dragged our record back to 29-29. So, we never could promise or predict that was going to happen any given week. But it's nice to feel that we got all the games correct. We'll go in game by game. And I really believe, go back a few rounds, you'd have to go quite a few weeks to find a game we've really got wrong. I think we've lost a couple of games that could have gone either way. Why don't we begin with the Sharks-Cowboys? In the end, the Sharks won 26-12. Our best bet was the Sharkies plus half a point at halftime. They did only lead by 2 at halftime, but, they pretty much led this game wire to wire, to be honest.
Yeah, the Sharks started off the game brilliantly, exactly as we expected. They were winning 12-0 after 20 minutes. And at that point, it was pretty much a sweat-free winner for us in that first half best bet. The Cowboys did put on a few tries of their own once they got their fair share of the ball in that first half. And then just before halftime, the Sharks got a sin bin for repeated infringements on the goal line. And then at I think it was 12 all heading into halftime, you would have favoured the Cowboys into that back end. And I think it's fair to say that a big turning point was at Tom Alaulau no try, where they called an obstruction on Robson when he was just acting as a support runner. And I'm not really sure what he's supposed to do or where he's supposed to go. So I know that we're on the Sharks and we wanted to see just a great contest in the second half. And that was a big turning point because the Sharks go up the other end and score straight away. So that was a 12-point swing in Cronulla's favour. And then that final 20 minutes, they just dominated the play and they got a deserved win in the end. But yeah, it was a tough call, wasn't it, Jacob?
Yeah, you pinpointed that exact moment because Tamalolo's breaking through. Robson is running support. He's running alongside him in case he can offload it. But when Tamalolo gets met by the fullback, then Robson invariably runs just beyond Tamalolo. And then a couple of cover defenders, when Tamalolo beats the fullback, they couldn't get a clean go at JT. So it's a funny one because, in live, you think it's a try. When it gets sent upstairs, you can see their point that a couple of defenders couldn't get to him. And the bunker said, well, his teammate was in front of him. Well, he was only in front of him because he did get slowed down. And it was a huge moment. It would have put the Cowboys in front, I think. I think it was 14-12 to the Sharks at halftime. They were comfortably up 14-6, but the Cowboys got the ball down that end right at the end of the half, got the sin bin, and did score on the final play of the half. So pulled it a bit closer. We weren't sweating too much with our plus half a point because, as I say, we're up 8 late in the half and end up going up 2. But as anybody's game second half till that moment, then Sharks get on top. Of course, the Cowboys had pretty much all the origin players out apart from Gilbert, who did back up. The Sharkies did pull Talakai out. They said it wasn't a matter of rest, but it was a shoulder injury he picked up Wednesday night. But, I mean, having Nico Hines back, that made a big difference too. The Sharkies roll on. Now, I think they're still third. I think they're still behind the Cowboys. But, geez, They're charging up the ladder. And a few of these other top 4 sides are dropping games. So the Sharkies are having a bit of a charmed run. Next game was Eels, Warriors. And straight off the bat, I will say if you had Eels 13 plus or Eels with the line, you'd be pretty salty. I don't know if you would have got over it yet. It was 28-6 with under 5 minutes to go, put honest.
Yeah, what a bit of a strange one this game was. At halftime, the game was in the balance with Para only winning 10-6, and the Warriors came to play, and they had plenty of energy and momentum. And it just felt like one of those games again where the Eels might have let it slip. But straight after halftime, they'll decide with more purpose and more running, and they put on 3 quick tries between the 50th minute and the 70th minute. And you would have thought the game was almost over. They had the game won at 28-6, and the Warriors scored 2 tries in the final 4 minutes. Much like it was last week as well, where the Tigers backdoor covered against them as well. So if you're being a Para fan, they burned you recently, but I would have felt that's a case more of that they had the game wrapped up and they stopped trying, I think.
You know what the bit that would have hurt the most? And I will apologise if our sound is not synced with our video. For us, it's for some reason we couldn't get it quite connected. It might be annoying if you're watching this. Wouldn't be an issue probably if you're listening. But consent try, okay, fine. You were up over 20 points. But then they're all offside of the kickoff. I think that's what really got to grind people's gears, which then straight away invited the Warriors back down their end a couple of minutes to go, and they gave up a try on 5th tackle. But that's just to say that there was never a chance the Warriors were going to win this game. The scoreline looks a little closer when you do score 12 in the final 5 minutes. Comprehensive victory for Eels. Well, they played strong for 75 minutes. Brad Arthur wasn't happy with how they finished it. And points differential could be important, but most important for Parramatta was just to bank the 2 points because I guess this is kind of a banana peel game. We didn't know how the Warriors would respond after finally getting their homecoming, but then having to travel back across Australia and a bit off the pace here, but we always felt they would be probably outclassed by Parramatta. On Saturday, this was a frustrating one. I think it cost us a multi-leg, but although in the end, that multi wouldn't have gotten up. But we had for our best bet, we laid 1.5 tries. So it was Roosters minus 1.5 tries. For the multi, it was Roosters halftime, full-time. And if I told you the Roosters were up 12-0 and I told you they won the game by 28 points, you'd be pretty confident they won halftime, full-time. In fact, they didn't, but honest.
I know. Extremely frustrating watch. Not only did it kill the multi-leg, but it also put us in a bad position with our mixed matchup where we had the Gold Coast to outscore the Dragons and the Roosters winning 12-0 on the 30th minute as well. And the Dragons would end up having the lead at halftime with a solo try to Ben Hunt. And then he kicks a 40-20, much like he did in the Origin on Wednesday night. And then they score again. And then they get a cheap penalty before halftime. And the Roosters are down by 2 points. And at that point, the Dragons were in the game. And I was a bit nervous of our 1.5 try handicap at that point because Billy Smith did come off injured. The Roosters were dealing with some adversity of their own, but second half was just a completely different game. The Roosters came out and looked probably the best that they've looked in a 40-minute period all season. Joey Manu was brilliant, as was Tedesco backing up from a heroic performance on Wednesday. And they ended up carving up the Dragons, scored 1,000 tries. And it was just disappointing that the Roosters let in a couple of their own. And one of those was the Cody Ramsey intercept. The Feagai intercept. But yeah.
Well, it was Ramsey, I think it was.
It was Ramsey.
Or was it Fianga who, I think it was Ramsey, yep.
Yeah, but it was one of those games where the Roosters elevated themselves back into top 8 contention, but then the downside for them would be some of the injuries that they copped. And I think they're the first side in the last 3 years to have 2 ACLs in the same game now with Tupanua as well. And Billy Smith confirmed today. So that's going to be tough for them. And I'm not sure where they go to for the rest of their season, especially with the doubt hanging over Keary. But it's definitely a step in the right direction for them, and snaps a 4-game losing streak and puts them on top of the Dragons and 4 and against.
The first team to have 2 ACLs in the same game since themselves a couple of years ago, if that's right, because there was a game where Verrills and Radley, pretty sure, if memory serves, both did ACLs. So it's been ridiculous. So that's the story. First of all, Collins, head knock, Origin, couldn't play this game. So, that doesn't help. But they did sign Lodge, and that brought him onto the interchange bench, so he got his club debut. But then Warrior-Hargraves was supposed to be back and then was withheld again, so he didn't play in this game. And the Roosters finished it with 13 men. So I'm trying to remember how many players got injuries, but we're talking Tupanua, season-ending injury, Billy Smith, ACL as well. And they had 2 other players as well they lost throughout the course of the afternoon. So they were dropping like flies, and that has a lot to do with why the score blew out, because whoever had the ball was dangerous, because everyone was gassed, and it was like a game of touch footy or rugby sevens out there. Nobody could hold firm. And in saying that, as you say, Dragons got 6 of their points from a gift where the Roosters are in the attack and just trying to keep it alive, and a careless or wild pass gets nabbed by Ramsey and takes it back the other way. In the end, the Titans didn't score enough points to really win us the mixed matchup. And in the end, Roosters, if I didn't say the score, they won 54-26. So we comfortably covered our try handicap. And the other big story out of this game, and the question I'll put to you, Padonis, although we just watched what Latrell did today, but how close, and also what Munster did in the losing side today, by the way, reminded everyone how brilliant he is. But how close is Joey Manu to best player in the game right now? He was absolutely ridiculous in this game. He destroyed. Like, Ben Hunt started the game great, did what he could. But, like, there's even a moment where the Roosters get tackled on the try line in attack, and Sam Walker's going into dummy half, and Joey Manu runs over and pushes him out of the way and picks it up. What do you think he's going to do when he runs in and does that? You reckon he might have a go himself? Of course he does, and he just barges over because he's so powerful. All right, so you've let Manu score from dummy half. Like, I always feel teams shouldn't let a dummy half just burrow over. But somehow, time and again, it happens. He does it again later in the game as well. Like, they didn't see it coming. But, like, those superhuman players can do that. And Manu's just in everything, of course, playing 5'8". But in the aftermath, it does sound like Keary, his season is not lost, and he could still come back into this team, and then they could shift Manu back out to the centres. But obviously you'd play him as like a roaming centre because you just want him touching the ball as much as possible. It is brutal for the Roosters to lose, another key player, especially Tupanua, because I feel that you can cover the Smith loss. And for the Dragons, they couldn't compete with the Roosters. Roosters put them under so much pressure and fatigued them so much and looked so sharp. And they just had no answer for what Manu and Teddy were throwing at him. So that was our second best bet cashing. Now, this game was closer for 50 or 60 minutes even. Well, maybe I'm being kind to the Newcastle Knights, but it was close for at least a half and a bit. That was Manly 42 defeating Newcastle 12. We didn't have a best bet on this game, but what did you take away from, as I say, a match that was tight for 50 and then a total blowout late, Padonis?
Yeah, Manly have been a lot more improved without Turbo than I probably would have given them credit for. I did lean them on Wednesday, but we missed the best of the number. And then once the news came through of Evans playing, or Evans likely to play, then that line shifted to 10.5 at kickoff. And at that point, I would have lent the Knights, and I did feel like it was going to be a tight game and a game that points would be at a premium. But Manly almost beat the points total themselves, given how they played in the final 30. And once Olakau'atu scored on the 50th minute, then they just ran right on the Knights. And I wouldn't say the Knights gave up, but very, very similar to how they played last week against South. They just lose all shape in defence, and they don't have any answers for the attacking onslaught, and they make plenty of errors themselves in ill discipline. And it seems like we sit here at the same time doing every week, and we question what happens to O'Brien and how he gets the players up. But I think it was a case of even Ponga played and he couldn't inspire much, and it was more of the same from the Knights. But Manly are now sitting in 8th spot, and they're on a bit of a roll. We've won 5 of the last 6.
Yeah, you can't replace Turbo, but Garrick's doing a great job there, and they're really in sync. The forward pack going forward, and they've got playmakers there like Olakau'atu, I seem to talk about every week. DCE backed up and was awesome. And even playmakers in the back line, where they haven't always had a lot of star outside backs, but like this Cooler, is really dangerous. Saab had some big moments in this game too. And for the Knights, they started pretty strong. Ponga also backing up, and I'm talking about, it's easy to back up because I've got a spring in my step and I've got confidence, and this is an important game for us. And also, I don't even think he believed this, but before the game, he's going, we still think we can make finals. We've got 7 or 8 games left. We think we can win all of them. I was starting to think maybe they believe that because they did start the game pretty well. I think it was 12-all, late in the first half, anybody's game. And then, no, it can't have been 12, it must have been 6-all. But then when the Knights had someone sent to the bin, if you can remind me who got the sin bin, that was just before half-time. Then you felt like that 10 minutes after half-time was going to be absolutely crucial. And, in fact, the Knights scored. Milf, that's right. Milf got the sin bin late in the half. And then in the second half, playing with 12, Ponga scores an amazing try and gets the Knights back in the game, and they actually survived that period. But this is the point that O'Brien misses. In the footy, like in the NRL, momentum swings back and forth. One team gets a few sets in a row, completes, wins the contact, wins the tackles, gets penalties or calls their way, scores points, right? But it always tends to swing back and forth. And there's times where the opponent's got the running and you've got to weather the storm and you've got to be tough. And O'Brien likes to point at moments in games or periods of games when everything went his team's way and say, see, that shows if we can just play like that, we'll be fine. That's not how it works. It's not going to always be going your way. There's a reason why you can't always just play the way you played when you scored a try or 2 in a row. You have to be also tough and resilient when you're up against it. And the Knights completely folded, and the Seagulls ran a bunch of tries in late, as they like to do at Four Pines Park. And they are a side that definitely is on a mission to play finals footy. The Knights are anything but. I just want to try and respond to some of these comments as they're coming through. So going back to a brutal, unlucky but correct call, that was Barney. I'm sure he was referring to the Taumalolo try getting disallowed. He says, go Dozer. Great week for Ben Hunt. As I say, started that game against the Roosters really strong, although they did end up getting blown off the park. Siebes, who I know is a Dragons fan, put the crying emoji there and saying, how do you score 26 but not win? And that the Dragons made Joey Manu look good. Aaron says, I feel like you can't even celebrate a try anymore without the feeling in the back of your head the bunker will intervene. I'm completely there with you. I hold my breath. Honestly, basically don't celebrate if I've got any doubt. And all I do is watching on Fox, look in the bottom right corner and just wait for that try confirmed bar. And there's always a little pop-up usually that says try replay that pops up just before try confirmed. And that pops up and you think, try. Oh, no, it's just try replay. It is hard. It is hard because there's quite a few key tries in games, including one we'll talk about in the very next game, where a team will go crazy thinking they've scored a massive try and then the bunker intervenes. Barney says, time for Manu to go leave and go play fullback. I mean, what could the Redcliffe throw at him? Or really any team in the competition? I think it would be exciting to see John Manu play fullback. He will be, of course, fullback for the Kiwis in the World Cup. And I wanted to get back to this one. Billy Newton asked, what did you think about Manu grabbing his knee and then setting the try up? So I didn't think he was foxing. I didn't think he deliberately did to fool the defence. I think he felt his calf grab and he stopped because he was worried, but then it was just a cramp. And then he saw the defence all stop. And then he realised he could actually surge straight through the line. And it was pretty funny. And he just made a line break and then put a grubber through it and they scored a try. Aaron, I don't like how the refs say to players, you can challenge if you want. It sounds like the refs talk the players into it. Refs shouldn't influence captain's challenge. I guess it covers the refs back. Don't complain to me. It's on you to challenge or not. Some teams still use it well and other teams still kind of throw theirs away. Alicia says Jake was awesome. That's Gerbo backing up for the Seagulls. She's got a lot of comments coming through. Maddie says that's the Undertaker. The only question is who Manly will play in the grand final. But Alicia says Manly play well against the bottom 8, but the top 8, they choke. That's the flat track. Bullies moniker, they've got to shake. Okay, this is the game where 2 more best bets were on the line and we did cash the pair of them with the Broncos beating the Titans 16-12, but we had +4.5 first half. It was, 6-all at halftime. And then second half, Brisbane did win the second half by 4 points. We had plus 5.5. So perfect result for you, Padonis, because your Broncos get another important win with a lot of key players out, but we sweep our round of best bets.
That's what they call the double sweep, where your team wins and so do the pod. But no, it was a great game, I thought. Starting off, it was pretty defensively minded with both teams. It took, I think it was until the first try was scored. I think it was after half an hour where Boyd steamed through on the end of a grubber and the Titans took the lead 6-0. They defended brilliantly. I think that was the story of the first half, was how much pressure the Gold Coast had to withstand on their own try line, and time after time kept on repelling and turning away the Broncos. And they were pretty fortunate. It was just with the final play of the half, almost, the Broncos score on the left wing for Hoyter there. And it's pretty good for a Broncos point of view, where both your wingers, the Queensland wingers in Corey Oates and Cobbo, are out, but you've got two guns. And I'd go as far to say is that they're probably some of the best backup wingers in NRL, with Pereira on the other side. He's just a ball of energy every time he runs the ball, and surely he can get a start somewhere, because I'm not quite sure if he's happy or not being a backup. But yeah, as you said, we had plus 4.5 in the first half. That one cashed with a 6-all. And then in the second half, it was anyone's game for a period there. It was back and forth. They were trading sets. You could tell that the Broncos were depleted and they were missing the Origin guys. And that's something that we did say in the pod on Wednesday, is that they are not going to look as good as what they did against the Dragons. And that showed here. I think the story in the second half was Adam Reynolds controlling the game and setting up the Broncos with good field position and making the Titans come out of their own end time after time. And there was some pretty poor errors from Beau Fermor on his own 20-metre line. And I think they gifted the Broncos both their tries, because both their tries came direct off plays after he made that mistake. And then the Gold Coast did have a chance to win the game at the end, with the grubber going through and Philip Sammy dropping it with that special S-word separation coming into it again, where he didn't re-grip the ball. I did feel that was a fair call, but then also felt like it was a fair no try as well on Zach Hosking when the ball grazed the grass, which was tough, but another one of those ones where I think it's fair and Brisbane get a win. And you could tell that the Gold Coast Titans were visibly deflated after that, because they poured everything into that. And Holbrook even said in his press conference as well, the game was there to be won. We wanted to win the game. We had everything going for us, all preparation, but goes to show that the Broncos have stepped up over the last 2 months, and they can win without their Origin players, and that's going to give them tremendous confidence. And now they're locked in a top 4 battle with Melbourne, surprisingly, as well, with the Eels all on 24 points. And those two teams play each other next week as well on a Thursday night. So that'll be a great way to kick off round 19.
It's really important, or really massive, when you can pick up 2 points, but you didn't have to burn out any of your rep players. So it's the best of both worlds for Brisbane, because they rested everybody who needed a rest. They weren't short-sighted in this one. They knew it wasn't going to be easy, and they come in and they do just enough to get the win. And I'll be honest, I wanted the Titans to win this game. We copped a bit for taking the Titans in this one. Everyone thought Brisbane was going to win easy. So I would have liked to see Titans get the outright upset, although, in the end, it didn't matter for our best bets. And they didn't get close enough, unfortunately, for us to win the mixed matchup. But you talk about Holbrook there, and I'm disappointed in the journos that were asking him questions at the press conference, because what would have been the question? Does anything come to mind that you would have asked Holbrook about his game plan or his game management?
What happened to Tino?
Did he forget about him? The biggest bloke, the best bloke on the team, the captain of the team. This is your grand final. We talked so much, or all my thoughts have been on our preparation. This game was so important for us. Not one journo asked him why he didn't bring his best player on till 30 minutes to go. At that point, you could have built the lead bigger. Titans scored twice to take the lead in this game. You're holding Tino back. What are you holding him back for? You're saving him for finals? What game is more important than playing at home? You've won once this season since March. You've won 0 times this season since March. When you did win in March, you won by a fluky, lucky final second kick in the in goal that hit the crossbar or something, or was dropped by the Tigers. And you're playing Tino 30 minutes. The game before, I just watched Jake Trbojevic and DCE and Kalen Ponga all back up. I mean, what's the and no one asked for Holbrook, and all the journalists kept saying was, you had to be happy with the effort. Oh, the effort was a lot better tonight, wasn't it, Justin? Oh, the effort. And he's going, yeah, the effort. Okay, well, let me explain something. If it's your biggest game of the season and you're at home and you're playing the Broncos, who have none of their origin stars backing up, and you lost by 4 points, and if not for the disallowed try by the Broncos, you might have lost by more because you might have cracked because you would have been down more than a try, and everyone's going to praise you for your effort. What that tells me is how piss poor must your effort be every other week. If that's a great effort, if they think that was such an awesome performance because they got close to Brisbane, missing like 6 of their best players, that just shows how embarrassing the Titans are this year, and that's why I'm disappointed, because should have won that game. And Holbrook's like, oh, if Sammy holds the ball, we win. Actually, no, you don't necessarily win. It would have been huge and it would have put the Titans in front, but there was 15 to go, and the Broncos would have played quite differently in the final 15 if they had to chase points, if they were behind 2 on the scoreboard, as opposed to, as it was, they held a 4-point lead and they managed that out. You talked about Reynolds, just kicking to corners and just keeping a calm head on that team, and Brisbane obviously just completing late in the game. But yeah, it was an absolute arm wrestle. I was also so disappointed. The Titans, I felt like they didn't get any 6 agains, and Brisbane could kind of dominate them in the ruck all night, but maybe not having your best forward says something about that. Because the other thing about Tino is when he came on, he was so damaging. He was so good. If only he'd been on a bit earlier. But how about the Titans not coming up with the ball right at the end of the first half, giving the Broncos a fresh set, and then Herbert not knowing that he was on the wing and standing still and watching Reynolds throw a cutout across his face to the wing to Hoyter, and then going, oh, what? I've got no winger outside me, and the Broncos score, and Reynolds drains a sideline conversion right in halftime. How many times have I been saying the last few weeks that tries right on the bell of halftime are so pivotal? We saw it on Wednesday night. We've seen it in so many games. I feel like an unusual amount of games has seen a try in the final minute of the first half. And it's the difference. Again, even though the Titans did hit the front, and as we say, like, it's not an excuse. Like, oh, it's unlucky that they couldn't put the ball down when Sammy got to that kick. And I thought, why am I having a blank? The Titans halfback, it looks like the Beavis and Butthead character, Sexton, had a great game in the boot. And I was saying this a few weeks ago that he's like one of the leaders in the competition for repeat sets force. He's got really good touch off the boot. He had a try assist. He should have had another one. They forced a lot of line dropouts. I'll tell you just a random thing. As a Titans supporter and Titans backup, every time the Broncos went long on the dropouts, I was so happy, because the Titans are just that type of team that does all the hard work and forces a dropout, and then the opponent goes short and the Titans spill it. Like, I was so thankful that the Broncos never made it a contest for those dropouts, but the Broncos were willing to absorb pressure, and I say congratulations to them, because they got a gritty 2 points, even though that was the Titans that pretty much threw that one away. Moving to today, the game that we were split on, and early on looked like you were right in thinking Penrith was going to have too much further west. In the end, it was anyone's game. West very easily could have won. It's kind of similar story to the Titans Broncos. And the home team had a great chance for an upset against an opponent much higher on the ladder, but of course the opponent missing a lot of their best players. In this case, Penrith without 7 origin stars still won 18-16 over the Tigers.
Yeah, the Tigers scored the first try in this game against the run of play, but then the first half, the story of the first half was how dominant the Panthers were, and the scoreline didn't really reflect that at 12-10. And this game really pissed me off, because one of the bonus tips I gave out on our podcast on Wednesday was a double play, which is -2.5 in the first half on the Panthers at $1.78, and Penrith have 1,000 running meters, 26 tackle busts to 600 for the Tigers. And again, you talk about late tries before halftime. Here's another thing that I've noticed this year as well, is how many tries people are scoring off scrums this year when they're down in the red zone. Almost feels like I see 5 or so around. It's that common at the moment. And Dewey scores just before halftime to give a much-needed momentum boost to the Tigers. And they could have really scored again just before that with an offside, stopping them taking the lead into halftime off that bomb when the siren was going. And then in the second half, I think the story of the second half was just how many errors both teams made. I don't think either side completed above 50% for the first half an hour. It was just, it was pretty poor footy on both halves. And you could excuse that for the Panthers, given that they were missing quite a few of their stars. But on the same token, we did see against the Bulldogs how well they went without those guys playing. So the first half was a lot different for them in the second half. And they managed to scrape through with a last-minute try to Fisher Harris, who was well-deserved. He played 70 minutes in his 150th game. And then they ended up closing out the match after that. And I think Ivan Cleary always likes to get one over the Tigers, and this one will be no different. And Tigers still trying to formulate and try to come up with a win. Still plenty of effort on their behalf, but I just don't think that the combinations work this time, moving Hastings into lock. I think that failed because it looked like there were two halfbacks on the field and no one really took control. I don't know how you saw it, Jacob, but that's the feeling that I got watching the game in the second half.
Yeah, I felt like Hastings, he did run the ball a bit more often. He kind of still played halfback. So it was like he was first receiver. He was in the middle of the field. And then if you went left side, it was Brooks kind of playing like a 5'8" on the left side. And then if they went to the right, it was Dewey and it was his side. So they kind of had three halves, like a middle half Hastings and then Brooks and Dewey on each side. But Penrith scrambled pretty well. Yeah, the halftime score didn't reflect how dominant Penrith were and how Penrith looked threatening almost every set and opened the Tigers up multiple times and just missed a few opportunities. And as you say, Tigers almost miraculously hit the front, although the try off a bomb on the final play of the half was overturned for offside. And then the second half was tough to watch. I didn't mind it in the sense that it was really tense footy. Like both sides were pretty desperate for the win. It meant a lot to the Tigers if they could try and pull this win at home. And for the Panthers, like when they're, the baby Panthers play, it means a lot to all these guys that aren't always there, but it also means a lot to the other key players who aren't Origin reps, like Fisher Harris, and obviously Kickow is always threatening, and Edwards. These guys stepped up, and as you say, even after the Tigers hit the front, the Panthers come back, and Fisher Harris under the sticks cements the victory. Another tough one for the Tigers, but they just don't have that confidence or that kind of killer instinct, and they couldn't put the Panthers away. And the Panthers just ridiculous that they can win, missing 7 of their best. Now, we've got a couple more games to go, but I forgot to get a bookie update, and it'll be interesting for people to hear how the bookies actually fared in round 18. So let's get a word from our show sponsor, Top Sport. Here's Tristan.
One of those weeks after Origin where it's always tricky to price, and there were some big goes this weekend. Cronulla were absolutely smashed, obviously, with no Cowboys players backing up, and the punters got the chocolates there. The Roosters wasn't due to Origin, but they were just backed off the map, and obviously they were very, very comfortable winners. The Tigers firmed very hard early in the week when it was known that the Panthers boys weren't backing up, and again, punters shot very straight there. I'm recording this just as this Raiders game is finishing, and the Storm were very, very well backed as well. They were they shot it a fair way once it looked like the majority of their players were backing up, and a lot of multis ran into the Storm. So we did get a bit back in that game. So punters on top on the majority of games, but obviously when you get a shorty roll like Melbourne at that price, it does help from that perspective. So I think we're in the balance at the moment coming into the last game of the weekend between the Souths and the Bulldogs, where the Bulldogs have actually been back reasonably well plus the start. So looking forward to seeing how next week goes when we're back to a bit more of normality. Hopefully everyone who had a punt over the weekend had a bit of success, and we'll speak to you on Wednesday.
Good day for Top Sport by the sound of things then, with the Storm, who we'll speak about next, getting rolled. And then he said that there was actually a bit of money on the Bulldogs plus the start. I guess it depends what start you got. We always talk about it's so important to get the best number. You could have got 8.5 if you played the Bulldogs, who of course lost by 8 today. But if you wanted to play Souths, you would have been able to lay it under 8 and you could have won as well. So hopefully you did whichever side of the equation you took. Just one other moment. I don't know if anything else springs to mind for you, Padonis, but I meant to bring this up in the Titans Broncos game because I feel like the Titans were ready to give it away, especially when that Hoskins scored, but then they got a reprieve because it was called a no try by the bunker. And then when the Titans thought they'd hit the front and it was obviously ruled a knock on, then I felt they were deflated. And then Brisbane's down the other end and Reynolds puts a kick in. And it's Fafita and not David Fafita that comes up with one of the greatest players, gathering a kick at full pace, like off his ankles in the in goal, beating defenders, and then a 60-metre run that actually gets the Titans back up the other end with a chance to win the game. That young Jojo Fafita was incredible for the Titans. Any other moments? Is there anything else we haven't touched on yet from the game so far, or are you happy to talk about Storm Raiders? I felt like so much happened this round, and that was a crazy one as well.
Yeah, that was one of my favourite plays of the round, the way he beat Stags, nearly got ankle tapped, held his feet, showed tremendous balance and runs all the way up the other end. And credit to Ezra Mam as well for sticking with him the whole way, making a great tackle. He's one of the best defensive halves in the comp, I reckon. That's how good he's gone so far. And the combination with him and Reynolds is getting better each week. And I'm happy to move straight on to the Storm game because, that was another great game to talk about and big win for the Green Machine.
It does make me think, you just spoke about how the Broncos have got good depth at wing. Well, actually, so do the Titans. You got like this fella Fafita, Thompson was back. They've got Izako, Sammy, having another blank. Who's that absolute beast? Marziu as well. Like, he didn't play. But it doesn't really matter if you play on the wing for the Titans. Unfortunately, the chances are few and far between. But this was a crazy game, and it would have actually cost us our multi. And we're lucky we didn't actually have any best bets because we kind of liked the Storm. They ended up losing 20-16 to the Raiders. So we liked the Storm, or I should say leaned towards them on Wednesday. But at that point in time, we didn't know for sure if Harry Grant was going to back up. Of course, I mean Thursday. We did the pod after Origin. So we had our doubts, and you wouldn't jump in laying the points with the Storm if they then could be without Grant. But we knew Munster would be back, Kaufusi would be back. And in the end, a couple more Raiders were ruled out, Kotrick, Elliot Whitehead, and then Grant did back up. This line got all the way out as high as 16 today, Padonis. And I'll lead off as well by saying when the game started and within the first 5 minutes, I was certain that the Storm was going to win by a big margin. The very first set, Pappenhausen goes straight through. Actually, Munster throws a dummy and then an offload. Pappenhausen straight through. It's a try under the sticks for Olam if Pappenhausen wants to, but for some reason he looks left and bushes it and throws it past 5 meters forward to Meany. So, all right, that's a warning shot, but a chance missed. 6 points wasted. The Storm were on the board very soon after that. Another Munster dummy sells some candy to the defence and they go through. They score. They're up 6-0. They're on the attack again, looking for more points. And this time I think it's Pappenhausen again, flings a pass out the back and finds Sebastian Chris, who runs 85 metres the other way. So now you've blown 2 tries already, or you've blown a try, and then you've also handed a try to the opponent. So you could be up double digits instead at 6-all. And then the Raiders make a line break, and I think it's Chris again that collides with Pappenhausen. And I heard the prognosis is fractured kneecap. I haven't heard if that's a season ender, but I heard he was straight to hospital for surgery.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So that's brutal. When you think about how dominant Penrith are, and we were saying only like a week ago, who's playing Penrith in the grand final? Like, who's the next best team in the comp? And then you watched, obviously, Cowboys had their excuses, but they lost. Some people would say Cowboys. It's so open for who could make a grand final, which is why I think teams like Brisbane, Sharks, Parramatta, they're all in the hunt. Because Storm dropped their 3rd game in a row. So suddenly I went from thinking Storm were going to win by a long way this afternoon. Raiders won't be able to go with them. And Storm just looked confident, and Munster looked to be ready to have a big game and burn off some of that nervous energy that would have pent up over the week, understandably. And suddenly it's game on, and then Raiders hit the front and actually end up leading by 8 at halftime. And they know they've got a huge chance to win at this point, especially with no Pappenhausen and now with the lead. And they were also really gritty in defence. They showed that kind of steel that got them victories over the Roosters and, an upset victory over the Sharks a few weeks ago. That kept them in the game. They still could have lost this game if not for the Storm butchering many chances. The couple I mentioned early, and then they had another chance where Munster chips the ball beautifully over the defence and Hughes can't put it down. And even right to the end of the game where Xavier Savage has a chance for a put down to extend the lead beyond a converted try late, and the Raiders think they've won. Bunker overturns it. He spills it. Storm come back down the other end. Jerome Hughes looks like he has scored the winning try, and the Storm have made a comeback. But actually, Xavier Savage got across and dislodged the ball. An amazing try-saving tackle. The Raiders hang on and win this game. As I say, dealing the Storm a loss at home as 15.5, 16-point favourites was pretty wild.
Yeah, I even saw a 17.5 on Dabble before kickoff. That's how.
Yes, you're right.
How much money came for the Storm, and yeah, I think you touched on it great there. How gritty the Canberra Raiders were, and they also had some adversity with Rapana in the sin bin. We should mention that in the second half as well, with the Storm having a man advantage when they were down 14-12, and you would say that the winning try in the end after the Storm hit the lead was a brilliant individual play from their stand-in winger for Nick Cottridge, James Schiller, with the grubber when he runs out of play, and then he grounds the ball just on the corner of the in-goal, beats Nick Meaney, and they deserve winners, I think. But in saying that, look how many tries the Storm did butcher, and one of them you touched on, the one at the end with Jerome Hughes, knocking the ball on over the try line when half his body was over the line, and Savage didn't know too much about it. I think he was just trying to stop a tackle, and Hughes dived as low as he could have. And I think that was a fair no call because a few players were saying he was a head high. But when you go that low and you're below someone's knee height, I don't think accidental contact to the head can be classed as a penalty. Because, yeah, if you're not upright, what's the defender supposed to do? He has to tackle whatever body part he could see at that point. But Munster couldn't have played any better, I felt. And this was one of those games where Storm dropped 3 in a row for the first time in 7 years. And this is 4 straight games now Canberra have won in Amy Park, which is a pretty tremendous feat. And you wouldn't have thought you'd be saying that at the start of this game, with Storm did look so dominant early on. And that collision for Pappenhausen is brutal for them in their season. That was actually Jack Wyden they went through and had that one-on-one collision with him. It was in a knee-on-knee. And, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it was the Storm just coming up a bit short and not too sure how to assess them, because we did like them and we did think that they'd bounce back pretty handsomely in this one. But it's one of those cases where I think the Storm are still brilliant and they've got brilliant players, but they are a little bit short in some areas, and maybe they're just low on confidence at the moment as well. And I think Harry Grant playing a full 80 minutes on the back of Wednesday night, I think that took a toll because he wasn't as dangerous in the final half an hour. He did look a bit fatigued and tired. And Kafusi also played his first game back and he looked visibly weary in that second half as well. So I think it was a brutal game with the forward packs dominating and Canberra's guys coming out on top, and back to the drawing board for Bellamy, and all the sprays he's had in the last 2 weeks hasn't really worked for this one.
Yeah, I think their rotations were thrown out of whack. Like Wishart maybe could have come on, played some 9, but of course he had to come on to cover. The Pappenhausen loss. Big win for the Raiders, keeps their season alive. They're a team a bit like Manly that looked a bit like it was going to be a lost season earlier in the year, but grabbing really gritty wins is keeping their season well and truly alive, and they're in the finals hunt. For Melbourne, I'm definitely not writing them off. Like when I say who's going to make the grand final, who can challenge Penrith, I just mean that like 3 weeks ago, we all thought clearly Melbourne's the second best team in the comp, and like on their day, can make a grand final and could still win the comp. And it just feels like how the ceiling of Melbourne, and I said this on the pod a few weeks ago, it's just so, they're not as scary as what they have been. And when you said the Raiders have won 4 in a row at Amy, I'm thinking, no, that's wrong. Like you must have that wrong. But because the Raiders, they're nowhere near good enough to have beaten Melbourne the last couple of years. But the last couple of years, because of COVID, I'm guessing Melbourne didn't play the Raiders at Amy Park. So you'd probably have to go back to when the Raiders were really good. They made that grand final run in 2019. And I do remember the Raiders beating Melbourne a couple of times at Amy back in 2019. So that's probably where that record is still alive from. And in saying that, do you write Melbourne off? Do you not? Well, it's new information now that Pappenhausen's not going to be there. And he's one of the most electrifying players in the competition. But you nailed the key period of this game is Raiders are hanging on. They're in front. And then Rapana gets sent to the bin and the Storm has to score. Well, the Storm does score, gets back in the game, but they really had to score twice while the Raiders were down a man. And you talk about butchered tries. What about that a 3-on-1 and Kenny Bromwich? Oh. He could just dummy or just pass it early, ends up in the in goal, and somehow can't get a pass to his winger, gets knocked down, or then they get another repeat set and they're on the Raiders line and Olam picks it up from dummy half and just spills it. Like, there was so many blown opportunities. And with like a minute to go, you're thinking Raiders have hung on here, only conceded one try with Rapana in the bin. And then Schiller comes up with that miraculous solo where they go short side and he runs it down the sideline, as you say, grubber for himself, gets back in the field of play, regather, and cartwheel try in the very far corner of the end zone. That kind of won the Raiders the game. Huge win for them. The Undertaker says he's riding Melbourne off. They're going to have to dust themselves off, that's for sure, because they've just lost 3 on the trot. And the Dogs thought they were going to trot today, and they surged to a lead with under 10 minutes to go in this game. A wild one to finish Sunday night footy. How lucky are we? We've got Super Sunday today, and the nightcap did not disappoint at all. We didn't have a bet on this game, but Rabbitohs were victorious. As I say, this is one of those games I don't feel sorry for you if you're telling me you had a bad beat on the line, because a good punter would have either laid under 8 or would have taken over 8. So hopefully everyone who follows us and did back this game had a win, because the Rabbitohs won 36-28. But be honest, they were down 28-22 with under 10 minutes.
Yeah, what a wild ending in this game. At 28-22, the Dogs came out of the second half firing, and South couldn't complete a set. The Dogs scored 2 brilliant tries, you'd say, to hit the lead. 2 tries that were from their own half, and you wouldn't have been saying that much with the Dogs team over the last 4 or 5 years, that they can score long-range tries and they do trust their ability to offload and push the play. And South came up with a few tries at the end to the brilliance of Mitchell, keeping the ball alive on last play. And the match-winning try in the end was a 2-man cutout pass that Mitchell threw, no-look pass to Johnson. That was nearly intercepted, by the way. I don't think many people called that live, but it definitely hit Carraz, and he might have had a chance to grab that had he been a bit more aware. I think the ball came a bit high on him, a bit quick, and he just clutched at it late, and it was just a slight deflection. But yeah, Souths didn't play the best, and they were definitely missing their punch there with Murray and Cook through the centre. It was a bit of a strange decision actually to rest Cook, given they only did play 28 minutes on Wednesday. But I think that Dimitri has realised that getting them rested and ready to go for the back end of the year when they are trying to make a top 8 push is pivotal for them, because they do have one of the hardest draws coming up in the next six weeks. I think it's probably the hardest on paper, with the exception of the Roosters. And that culminates in them actually playing the Roosters as well on the final day on the new stadium opening up. So that could look like a battle of the 7th or 8th at the moment. Manly will have something to say about that as well. But I think the Dogs can hold their heads up high. They had a fantastic game, but in the end, the class of South, and in particular Mitchell, who's really stamped his authority the last 3 weeks, as probably one of the best players in the world right now. And you wouldn't have thought you'd be saying that, given that Mitchell normally takes a while to wind up, because you can question his fitness and his body shape in past seasons, but he looks to be as good as you can hope to be at the moment.
He looks like a man playing against boys, and the comparisons that the commentators were making was Tom Trbojevic last year, because he looked to be playing a different sport to everybody else. He was absolutely ridiculous today, and that's why I opened this pod by saying, just imagine if he'd been there on Wednesday night, it could have been a different result for sure. Who knows if Freddie even would have picked him, but you can't help but think that when you watch a player dominate like he did at that level, while some of the outside backs for the Blues did have their struggles. Now, I was also really surprised Cook didn't play. You know, maybe he picked up a minor injury in Origin. In saying that, I thought Nikorima and Havili both were really effective at 9, so I don't think they missed Cook too much. But they did miss, I feel like they missed a guy like Campbell Graham out wide, and I felt like they were getting opened up. They missed his defence. Definitely missed Murray as well, tightening up their middle, because Bulldogs opened them up several occasions. And after the Rabbitohs led most of this game and led going into halftime and had a 6-point lead in the second half, the Bulldogs had all the momentum in the running and ran in, as you said, long-range tries, and twice scored long-range tries to take the lead late in this game. And I'd almost written the Rabbitohs off, because at 2 different occasions they were down 6 points, and it just looked like the Dogs had all the running in them and were going to surge over the top of them. But that's where Mitchell just comes into it. Like, he scores a try out of nothing to answer the Bulldogs when the Bulldogs had gone up. I think it was the Bulldogs had gone up 22-16. Yeah, and then Latrell just bursting through from midfield and takes a little offload and runs past, around, and through defenders to put it down, and just has this look on his face like like they didn't deserve to be on the same footy field as him. And then he has a hand in every try or the next 2 tries that the Rabbitohs score after that to actually hit the front. And you talk about he could have been intercepted, but it's just a thing of beauty, the way that he runs at the line, and they're terrified of him in full flight. And then he can throw a no-look cutout pass on the money. And it's very hard to intercept a pass that's thrown by a ball player that shows no cue that he's even going to throw it when you can throw a no-looker. So, oh, my goodness, it's just Latrell's world. It's Latrell's world, and we're just living in it. And he was the difference, because I don't think across the park, really, the Rabbitohs, apart from obviously the class of Johnston to finish some of these tries as well, you got to give credit to him, and he did have a hat-trick. The Bulldogs came up with some big plays too in this game and did enough to win. And you can say they'll be happy with their effort, but I think they'll be gutted as well, because anytime you're down and you hit the front with a few minutes to go, and then you get reeled in again, there wasn't too much they could do about it. As I say, Latrell, that's the definition of like taking over a game. And a big win for the Rabbitohs, so throw them in the conversation. You got all these sides like Roosters, although they've got their injuries, they put on 54 this weekend. They show their season's not done with. Rabbitohs with the trail back, they're a different side, and they're going to get Cook and Murray back in. Manly, they've, apart from Turbo, not too many injuries and really look to be clicking into gear. And the Raiders going and getting a gritty win today. And these are all sides that were, that are too far outside the 4, but they're all still frisky. They all still want to play finals footy, and they're all still going to be tough outs, and they're going to be tough to play on a weekly basis because they've all got their eyes set on playing some September footy. So all the sides that are just a little bit above those teams, like the Parramatters and Brisbanes and Sharks, while they want to climb the ladder, they also have some strong sides nipping at their heels. So the competition shapes up really nicely as we kind of head into, as I said on Wednesday, the final trimester of the competition. And I'm glad to say things are shaping up nicely for us, and maybe we're moving in the right direction now, winning 4 best bets in a row. And I think I will give us a pat on the back that we've stuck to our guns. We've got it wrong quite a few times, gone against the Cowboys, and we've heard about it, but we weren't afraid to play against the Cowboys on Friday. We've played Roosters many times. We've played against Dragons many times. It hasn't always worked out, but we took Roosters against the Dragons, and we've certainly copped it for being on the Titans one too many times, but we felt the value was there. We took them, and we did get the rewards in that one as well. And we'll try and build off the back of that, guys, because we're going to have a chance. Whatever our next best bet is, it can actually push us into a winning record. Not a profitable record yet, although there was some profit to be had throughout the weekend. I think you'll see the ledger. You're still down about 300 at 100 per play. But we're heading in the right direction, for honest. And I appreciate you joining me. Hope you guys didn't mind a longer recap. Just felt like there was so much ground to cover. We got a full slate of 8 games of footy and lots of talking points. And you've heard our key takeaways from that. Now we look ahead to round 19, see if we can build on our own momentum and try and find some winners for you guys in round 19. We hope you guys can join us then. Until then, have a good week and Lego.